Hello and welcome to another installment of Google Sheets 101. I am Jake Simbrick, and today's adventure is going to take us down the yellow brick road into the vocabulary of spreadsheets, and will leave you saying rows, columns, and cells, oh my, because you are going to be so fascinated with what you learned today. I wanted to start with this quote because it is a place where a lot of us have probably felt ourselves in before. Someone's talking to you about what you need to do while you're working in this Google Sheet, and they say something such as, just drag the handle down and the relative reference will fill down the column, ultimately displaying the formula output in each cell of the A1 D8 range. And they say it matter-of-factly, like you should know exactly what they mean, when in fact all you can respond with is, huh? And the goal of today is to get you to be able to identify and learn the main terms that are associated with spreadsheets so that you can use them to talk coherently about sheets with your colleagues. All right? Really, all we want to be able to do is start with communication, because sometimes when people come to me and they ask, "Hey, I want you to do so and so on my for my spreadsheet," they won't have a great way to describe what they want me to do, and it takes some digging. So the more informed we are about the different sort of anatomy of a spreadsheet, the better we can describe what it is that we want to do. First, I wanted to start off with spreadsheets versus sheets. And in the world of Google, a spreadsheet is going to be referred to as our entire document. In other words, when I go into Google Drive and I access my gradebook, for example, if that was a spreadsheet that you've made so far, that whole thing is called the spreadsheet. But inside of my gradebook, you might have a number of different sheets present. And those sheets can be found in the bottom left in each of those little tabs as highlighted on the screen here. Usually in common parlance, we might just say, oh, go to this tab or that tab. But they're referred to as sheets, and we can think of this relationship, the spreadsheet versus the sheet, as a book and a page. A spreadsheet is like a book and contains a lot of different data, and that data is going to be related to each other, sort of like the story within a book. And then the sheets contain individual portions of that story or little slices of the data, and altogether they tell the complete story. All right? And as we go today, I just want you to be aware that I'm going to be trying to use some analogies and stuff to help you remember these concepts if it's the first time that you've heard them. Next up, we have the toolbar, which is again a very basic piece. It's at the very top, indicating its importance. And it is highlighted in red here, and it contains a number of different icons that will allow you to edit the contents of our spreadsheet in different ways. Generally, it's for editing the text in different ways so that it appears the way that we want it to appear or make it look pretty, essentially. But there are some other more advanced features that you can find in the toolbar as well. And we're going to have a whole lesson just on the toolbar coming up. All I want you to know right now is that the toolbar is where you're going to be able to find lots of important functions, and it's located at the top of the spreadsheet. Next, we have the function bar, located right beneath the toolbar. And this function bar is where we are going to be actually editing the contents of any cell. When I open up a spreadsheet and I click on the cell and I want to say type in my name, I'll click on the first cell, for example this cell right here, and then my cursor will jump up into the FX box there, that blank space right below the toolbar, and I'll start typing, and everything I type in goes into that box. When I hit enter, it appears in the cell. This is our main way of interacting with a spreadsheet, and you should definitely know how to locate it. It's that blank space right between the toolbar and the grid below it, and it's going to be probably the most important way for you to interact with spreadsheets going forward. Next, we have the cell. The cell holds individual data points. When you look at a spreadsheet and you think of spreadsheets, you probably think about the cells, the grid-like structure of a spreadsheet. Cells are the basic unit of spreadsheet life, and thus I have included a picture of plant cells because much like life, our spreadsheets would not exist without the cells. All right? And we're going to talk a little bit more about cells in a moment. Right now, again, just very basic stuff. Cells are the individual boxes within the spreadsheet. Cells can be arranged in different ways. We generally are going to refer to cells being arranged in either columns or in rows. When we talk about columns, we're going to talk about vertical the vertical columns and stacks of cells, if you will. And what we can think of is Roman columns. They stand up and down. Columns in our spreadsheet also go up and down. And much like Roman columns, or I should say Roman numerals are letters. Columns have letters. That, for example, the one that is highlighted in this picture is column B. Roman numerals, letters, Roman columns, up and down. Columns in our spreadsheet, up and down, and they have letters. That's the association that I'm trying to make here. In contrast with our columns, we have the row. Rows are horizontal and they are labeled with numbers. They go across. And I've included here a picture of some seating. We might think when we go to a concert, you might say, oh, I was in the first row, I was in the second row. That's how we're going to remember. They go across, just like it goes across the stage at the concert, and they're labeled with numbers. This is going to be important when we start to reference different data in our spreadsheet. Understanding this difference between rows and columns will help you isolate and pull out the data that you want much quicker. Next up, we have the range. A range is going to be any group of cells that is blocked together, typically holding related data points. Way I like to think of this is like home on the range, out on the farm. A range is an area of land that's fenced in that keeps our livestock from leaving. We might think that a range in our spreadsheet is a fenced-in area keeping our data together. Now there's no physical boundaries here, it's just a way of us to organize it in our heads, and it also helps our spreadsheet calculations go much easier if we keep it well organized. But just know that when we refer to a range, we're talking about some sort of rectangular grouping of data points. And again, we're going to go into more detail in this in a moment. Right now I'm just pointing out the main features of spreadsheets. Okay, now we're starting to get into the nitty-gritty details here. I wanted to talk to you about something called A1 notation. A1 notation allows us to identify cells and ranges based on their column and their column letter and row number, and it's going to be very useful when we start doing formulas in the future to be able to refer to cells using A1 notation, because that's more or less how spreadsheets speak. For example, if I wanted to, in a formula somewhere, reference this cell right here, if it had some important data point in it, I could reference it by calling its column letter and its row number together. This cell is referred to as C3 because it's in column C, row 3. And I can refer to an entire range of data by using the upper left cell and the lower right cell, kind of similar to when we highlight data in a spreadsheet, we drag. If we want to reference data in A1 notation, what we do is we do the upper left cell, in this case it's E3, and then the lower right cell, G9, with a colon in between. Again, the purpose of A1 notation is going to be very apparent to you once you get into the next module, because it's how we're going to reference data to do fun formulas and functions with. An individual cell can be referenced, as well as an entire range. Lastly, I'm going to put a couple questions up here for you, and the video should prompt you to answer them. I would let them speak for yourselves or speak for themselves, and you can go ahead and answer those questions on the screen now. And when you get done with it, just go ahead and continue watching the video. We're going to do a little summary. Here we go. We are at the end of the vocabulary lesson. Hopefully you have identified a few different vocab terms that you maybe weren't familiar with before this. Maybe all this was just review, but it is important that you understand the structure and anatomy of a spreadsheet in order to continue working with it. Because much like a doctor, if we don't know what the different pieces are called, we're probably not going to be able to manipulate them that well. And that's all I've got for you today. Hope you enjoyed, and I wish you best of luck in your spreadsheet endeavors.